Am I the jerk for exercising on a bachelorette cruise? I went on a 3-day bachelorette cruise celebrating my best friend, the bride-to-be, last week. We cruised to the Bahamas as a group of 4, me, the bride, and 2 other bridesmaids, splitting 2 connecting cabins. When we all arrived on the cruise ship, things were going well. We unpacked, took some pictures, hit the pool, the classic cruise itinerary. That night, the bride and other bridesmaids got pretty wasted. I don't drink too much because I don't like the way alcohol makes me feel. So the next morning, when everyone was sleeping off their hangovers, I quietly got dressed and went to the gym. When I came back, the girls were stirring awake and getting ready for breakfast. The bride made a comment about my trip to the gym, something along the lines of, "I can't imagine exercising on vacation." I laughed it off and didn't think too much of it until we got to breakfast. I picked up regular foods to me: eggs, whole grain toast, and fruit. I didn't even think about what everyone else was eating until another bridesmaid made a comment to me. "Do you even eat sugar?" The girls had fun cruise food: waffles, donuts, whatever. That day we had fun in Nassau, and I tried my best to have a typical cruise dinner to blend in. The morning before we were supposed to disembark, I woke up early, before any of the girls got up, and quietly made my way to the gym one last time. When I came back, the bride was in the shower, and I was confronted by the other 2 bridesmaids. They let me know that my exercising and healthy eating was making the bride really insecure and asked me to be more sensitive during the wedding. I apologized and agreed in the moment, but I can't help stewing over the fact that I don't think I did anything wrong. Am I the a-hole? You are not the jerk. You didn't do anything wrong here. If she's feeling bad about her weight, only she has the power to change the amount she exercises or what she eats. Your health journey has no bearing on her. It's not like you canceled some plans you had together to go to the gym alone instead. Am I the jerk for saying family therapy is a waste of time and I'm done? So my father and stepmother decided that my stepbrother, 17 years old, and I, 15 years old, need therapy. They got married 6 years ago, and we're not the close family they thought they were creating at the time. The 2 children they have together did not bring us all closer. My stepbrother and I don't refer to them as our parents. When we started therapy, we were all asked why we were there. My father said he did not feel like my stepbrother or I had truly embraced the family changes in our hearts. My stepmother said she felt as though we had no real connection to each other, and they needed to try and change that before it was too late. My stepbrother said we were there because his mother wanted to force a new father figure on him. I said we were there because they didn't realize the image they had of the new family when they got married. In a recent session, we had to complete a questionnaire to see how well we knew each other. The counselor asked about our favorite foods, colors, and things to do. When we handed them back, the counselor asked my father about my late mother and brother's favorites, and confirmed my answers were correct. Both he and my stepmother asked why they had been listed. The counselor pointed out that I knew their favorites well, as well as my dad's old favorites, but not anyone else's. My stepbrother didn't know anyone's favorites, my stepmother didn't know mine or most of her sons, and my father knew most of mine but not everything. After the session, my father and stepmother were upset and hurt that I knew my late brother's preferences so well, but not those of my living family members. My stepmother said that my ability to remember my late family members' preferences so well shows that I didn't even try to get to know the rest of the family. I responded that I thought that was pretty obvious. They said I need to work harder in therapy because they are paying to fix things. I told them it's a waste of time if we're all going for different purposes and objectives. They got mad at me and later got mad at my stepbrother as well. They wanted me to promise to change my mind or else I would be difficult for no real reason. Am I the antagonist here? Your parent and step-parent aren't going to get the family they want by treating you and your stepbrother as if you can be molded into shape. Everybody in this situation has experienced terrible losses, and focusing on loving and accepting the family they have would be more beneficial than trying to force a vision on living, breathing people. Your respective parents should actually start working harder as parents and listen to what you and your stepbrother are saying. It's not just you who didn't blend into that family, it's all of you, including your dad and stepmom. Am I the jerk for going off on my in-laws and telling them I don't trust them? This past weekend, my wife's mother and stepfather offered to take the boys to a nearby park to give us a break for a couple of hours. When they returned to our house, our 1-year-old was crying and upset, and they informed us that he seemed really tired and/or hungry. My in-laws made some jokes about us not letting them watch the children again, then left. We fed the children and put them down for a nap. When the 1-year-old woke up, he still seemed out of it and was unable to put weight on his left leg. At this point, we knew something was wrong, so we took him to urgent care. On the way there, my wife called her mother to ask if anything happened, and she mentioned that he might have had a fall on one of the slides. The doctors performed an X-ray and found a minor spiral fracture. Now he's in a cast, but fortunately won't require surgery. The doctor even informed us that these types of fractures are common in children, my son's age, and even referred to it as a toddler's fracture. We reached out to my in-laws again to try to get more information, but they seemed to be evasive in their responses. A couple of days ago, I took our 3-year-old to the same park and asked him what happened to his little brother. He mentioned that his brother was on the slide with grandma, slid down by himself, fell off the end, went boom, and got an OE. I shared this with my wife, and we called her mother again. We relayed what our 3-year-old said and inquired about what happened. She denied what our 3-year-old said but didn't provide a clear answer on how our 1-year-old got hurt. At this point, I had had enough and confronted them. I expressed my concern that they were withholding information or outright lying about what occurred. I pointed out that they either know precisely how our son got hurt and are not sharing it with us, or they are unaware because they weren't attentive. I indicated that neither scenario is acceptable, and I have lost all trust in them. I emphasized that by withholding information, they put our son's health at risk, and I will not tolerate that. Stepdad questioned whether I believed the 3-year-old over them, and I affirmed that I did. My wife ended the call abruptly when she felt I was being too harsh. We argued about it because she believes I am blaming her mother for an accident and that I shouldn't be accusing them of lying. I reiterated that I do not want her mother and stepfather to supervise our children unsupervised under any circumstances, a stance with which she disagrees. You are not in the wrong here. Of course, you're justified in wanting to know how your 1-year-old son broke his leg. It's not about placing blame, but rather about understanding what happened to ensure it doesn't occur again. The fact that your in-laws deny any responsibility and refuse to explain the situation is definitely troubling. Accidents happen, but they need to be upfront and honest about it for the sake of your child's safety. Am I the jerk for not letting my estranged father's wife hold my son? I have been estranged from my father for 16 years. After my mom died, he just left. He didn't even take me someplace safe. He walked out of the house and didn't come back. He missed her funeral, and he wasn't around to take care of me or anything afterward. I was taken in by my uncle, and he finished raising me. My father's family remained a part of my life, and I have a few good relationships with them. 2 years ago, my father reconciled with some members of his family, but not all. I have seen him twice before this weekend when I saw him for a 3rd time. This time his wife was also with him. It was at a party for one of my cousins. My wife and I were also there, and so was our 7-week-old son. While my cousin, my wife, and I were talking, my father's wife approached and introduced herself. She said she could not wait to be a grandma and asked to hold my son. I told her she could not. She was all smiles up to that point, but the smile fell, and she asked me why. I told her I didn't let random strangers hold my son. She told me she's not a random stranger, she's his grandmother. My cousin stepped in and moved her along. My cousin was like, "What the heck?" With my wife and me, we did our best to stay out of my father's wife's way afterward. But she came over again as we were leaving and asked to hold my son again. I told her no yet again. My aunt was also present, and the two of them told me I was being harsh and to let her hold the baby. She told me I'm treating her like a criminal. I told her I was treating her like the random stranger that she is. My cousin heard the end of it and scolded her mom and my father's wife when we were gone and called me to apologize for what happened. I apologized to her for having that play out at her birthday. My aunt gave my father's wife my number, and the two of them told me I behaved childishly, and I should consider my son and what is best for him, and how I treated this innocent woman poorly. Am I the asshole? Nothing you have done here makes me think you are the jerk. Your dad gave up being your dad the second he left you as a 10-year-old kid to fend for yourself. He doesn't get to walk back in now and play doting grandfather, nor does the new wife he's found. She is no one to you, and the sooner she understands that her fantasy of being the grandma to your newborn is completely unfounded, the better. Am I the jerk for not letting my parent babysit our child? My wife and I have a nearly 2-year-old daughter. My wife is staying home with her but is going back to work soon. I mentioned it to my retired mom, and she was very insistent on babysitting for us. My wife laughed and said, "Yes, I can imagine that. Our daughter eating frozen pizza in front of a TV while your mom talks to her girlfriends on the phone, smoking inside, occasionally yelling at our daughter for age-appropriate behavior. And when we come back, she swears upon God she did not smoke here, tells the daughter was naughty, and we must spank her or she'll grow up to be a prostitute." I laughed too and never mentioned it to my wife again. Now, my wife did exaggerate, but she's not wrong. My mom is like that. The children must be seen but not heard type. She also tells what she calls white lies very often, basically refusing to admit she did something she was told not to do because she does what she wants and believes she's always right. So I realize her watching our daughter is not really an option, especially because our daughter does not like my mom at all. Sometime after our initial conversation, I was talking to my mom on the phone. She asked about my wife's plans regarding work, and I eventually told her we're already interviewing nannies. Long story short, I had to tell her that we don't think her babysitting our daughter is a good idea and is not happening. She was very offended by the fact that we'd rather trust a stranger than her. She cried and I felt bad, apparently not bad enough to change my mind, as I still think what she wants is not in my family's best interest. I do feel bad about this whole situation, but I must also say my parents are welcome to visit and interact with their granddaughter. I'm not preventing them from being in her life. However, my mom is giving me the silent treatment, and my dad called me worse than an asshole. Apparently, my mom is really hurt as she already told everyone she would be having her granddaughter over every day. I must say I never agreed to it, and she never even mentioned wanting to watch her in their home, which is an automatic no since they smoke inside. Am I the asshole? You did nothing wrong here. While it sucks for your mom, it would be bad for your daughter. As a parent, The person's needs you need to prioritize are your daughter's, especially while she is young and unable to advocate for herself. Your mom is an adult and should manage her disappointments and expectations better. The smoking alone would be a deal breaker for me. Am I the jerk for accusing my wife of being manipulative after she tried to get her way by telling her family the name she wants for our child, so I would go along with it? My wife and I have been married just shy of 4 years, and she is almost 8 months pregnant with our first child. Originally, we were Team Green, not finding out the sex, so we wanted to have a boy and a girl name. However, my wife got frustrated because I wasn't happy to just let her use her top choices for names, Peter for a boy and Susan for a girl, and for suggesting the name Everly after my late sister's middle name. She looked at the sex and found out we were having a boy, so we would only focus on boy names. She then decided she would give me a list of her top 10 boy names, and I could choose one from that since I wanted to be involved. I admit this made me upset. When we were dating, she complained all the time that her sister's husband never cared about the names of their children and gave no input at all, calling him lazy and lacking as a father. I promised her back then that I'd always want to play a role in that stuff and look for names together. She said that was perfect. I also mentioned how I'd love to use Everly for a future daughter in some way to honor my sister, and she thought it was a sweet idea. She said she was glad I was that way because she could never marry a man like her sister's husband or have kids with someone like that. Now that we're actually in the baby naming stages, she has changed her mind and wants to have full say because she's the one carrying our child. She was upset and said my involvement could be picking from the names she loves most and nothing else. Her list was Peter, Lawrence, Francis, Samson, Vincent, Patrick, Chester, Jeffrey, Stanley, and Caleb. I chose Caleb, but she didn't like that and still wanted Peter. We had not agreed on a name. I told her I did not want Peter. However, when we went to her parents' house for a family dinner the other week, she told her family we had decided to name our son Peter. I was furious because we had not agreed to that. Her family was all very happy, and when we got a moment alone, I accused her of being manipulative and trying to force my hand by making me the bad guy if I kept refusing. I told her she clearly never meant what she said about wanting a man who'd be involved, and she should have found herself a replica of her sister's husband, because that's what she really wants. She told me loudly that I was being a jerk and couldn't change my mind now, so her whole family was upset at me for trying to change Peter. Her sister's husband mocked me for being such a weak man. This made me more angry at her, and it made her more angry at me for being upset. Then she told me I had no right to call her manipulative, and we've been tense since then. Am I the asshole? Marriage counseling is absolutely necessary, especially considering the stress a baby brings to an already fragile relationship. Disrespect and contempt are love killers, and it's clear that your wife is showing you absolute contempt. It's crucial to stand firm and insist on at least 4 sessions before the baby is born. Otherwise, the status quo will continue to work for her while leaving you in a manipulative relationship. This will be difficult, but it's essential to be a person worthy of respect because you respect yourself, no matter what challenges arise. Thanks for watching. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications so you never miss a video. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist in the description.